For joining us again for Smart's Wednesday webinar. Today we'll be looking at Smart Response, and I'll actually do a little bit on Shout It Out because it's part of what Smart do in terms of feedback and probably worthwhile seeing. So today on the webinar you have myself, Kevin Daly, and Helen Lacey will be helping out a little bit as well. So Smart Response, it's part of the Smart Learning Suite. It's actually the assessment piece, so to do with formative assessment. Very, very useful for teachers, really quick, really easy to use. You get instant reports back, you can see pie graphs, word clouds of students' responses. So yeah, and also in your pod on the right, if you have a question, just put one in and we'll answer those at the end. So it's so Smart Response, basically formative assessment, really easy to share to students. You can very quickly and easily check your student understanding of the unit of work or the lesson. You can save, edit and reuse question sets, and you can actually export your results so you can use them in your learning management system or in your reports. So just to give you a very quick look at a Smart Response, what I'm going to do is I've got one in front of me, and you can see it's starting the activity. So in the same way that when you use Lab, you get a student ID. So I'm just going to click on Get Class ID, and you can see it's using my particular number for me that I would use with anything from Lesson Activity Builder. If I click Start, I can then, so I will actually click Start and I'll show you. I can then actually basically push that out to students and their devices, and they can go through the questions with me. So for today's purposes though, imagine the students have their iPad or their Chromebook or even their phone in their hand. They're going to see what you're about to see on the screen as I edit this activity. So I'm just going to show you how the activity is being built. So basically you can see I have down the right hand side 6 questions, which I'll work my way through and talk to you about. First question I have is multiple choice. I can add a question, I can delete a question, and I can actually use lists of information, which we'll talk a little bit later in the webinar about. So here's my first question: which is the largest planet in the solar system? You can see I've clicked the correct answer. Because it's multiple choice, I've put down some other choices for students. Little trap for the unwise: if you click next, you're not actually talking about the next question, you're talking about the next editing process. So I'll just take you through my questions quickly. So again, another true or false question for the students to pick from. Next question, number 3, what are Saturn's rings made of? Uranus often referred to, and that's a sort of an open question. And then you can actually use pictures. So on the student's device, they'll see the picture and they'll be asked a question, true or false, is this a picture of Uranus? Or the next one, write down the 2 things you know about this planet. So if I click next, I see my questions, I have a title that I can add, and I can actually add instructions for the students. At that point, just those 3 steps, like anything in Lab, to make it really easy for the teacher, my quiz is complete, ready to go. So students themselves, when they're doing the quiz, they can do it on the student app. The app is a free app for both from Google Play and the App Store. Really easy for students to use, great for secondaries because the students, once they've been with you, hopefully you can see clearly, they can actually pick the teacher rather than have to go to the process of logging on and putting in the number. So they just join the teacher in their class. If it were me, it's free, it's easy to use. I think I'd be grabbing it off the App Store if I'm an iPad school or a Chromebook school or whatever. So response questions, very, very easy to create. So the way that I've been doing it the last few times is I've actually been using lists, which I'll show you in a second. So, but we have those 5 different question types. We've got multiple choice, true and false, multiple answer, poll or opinion, or short answer. And don't forget, you can add pictures. It's not just about text, which sometimes really good for kids' visual learning and also for our younger students. So the response results, when we get them, if it's an open question where kids are giving an answer, we can actually have a word cloud, and the largest number of responses will be like the largest in the word cloud will be the largest response. So in this case, it was probably addition and multiplication. So we can look at the students' results as we go through once they've come through. So if we, as the students are answering the question, I see a live circle that shows how those students are going and where people are up to. Other nice thing is I can actually pause the quiz, talk to the students, and then reactivate or restart the quiz as well. So lots of flexibility and options with it. So teacher has total control of the pace of the quiz. It's totally teacher directed. It can be used anytime, anywhere. So you're not locked into, I have to do this in class. It could be set for homework for the students, and you could do it, you could start it that night, and the students could respond to it as their homework. So response is, in the old days, we had the smart clickers, and we built our questionnaires a slightly different way. If you were to go to Smart Exchange and download a response activity, it will be converted into Smart Response 2 for you. And there's just a little chart here just showing you what that conversion's like and what will happen. Best way to do any of these things really is to have a little play with it, but I'll actually show you on Smart Exchange where the response things are. So I won't go to shout it out yet. I'll just actually click onto Smart Exchange. Just give me 2 seconds. And I'll show you where, if we go to Smart Exchange, and don't forget, Smart Exchange is probably your best friend for building notebooks or any kind of content for Smart Learning Suite. But if we go here, we know we can search by subject, we can search by grade, but if we actually go by file type, you'll notice that in here there are Smart Response questions and Smart Response question sets. When you click on them, basically very easy to use. Some of them will be older format, but when you click and download, they normally will just open up as one page in a notebook. When I open it when done, it'll open. Now you'll notice I'm using notebook 17.1. Response has been with us since 16.2. So once this opens up, I'll just show you how you might use it. Sorry, my internet's a tiny bit slow, but there's obviously a few pages coming through with this one. Here we go, we're just about to start. So obviously it's a little quiz about money. We can go through. Now, if I were to drag any of the response activities, and all I do now, you've got a couple of options. You can actually copy the page and paste it into your other notebook, or if you want to, an easier way is to actually drag down to where your notebooks are, and you can bring it into your notebook just by dragging and dropping. Now, if it is an older style response activity, there will be a conversion that goes on, and that's what this slide talks about. Any information like that, Smart's very, very good at supplying you with information, videos, and help around any of your questions. And we also have a helpline that's available to you. So, okay, so just moving along. So response, basically, if we just think it's our formative assessment, we can push it out to the students. As the teacher, as the students answer, I will see on that bar graph the students answering. At any point, you'll see I can actually pause the activity, speak to the students, I can show the questions, and right at the end, I can, once the activity is finished, I can export all those results into Excel, and that means that I can take it into my Markbook or my learning management system. So a really good way to move forward with your assessment. So I've included Shouted Out because I see response very much as being a part of feedback for our lessons. So Shouted Out, I'm just going to build one for us as I speak. So basically, Smart Response and Lab, Smart Response and AMP are both in Lab. So if I go down here, I've got all my normal games and things like that, but here I see Smart Response. So I can just click on that, follow the 3 steps to build a response activity. And I can also use Shouted Out. So Shouted Out, I can use text or image. I can have categories or no categories. So let's say pre-knowledge, and I think this is a great way to use Shouted Out. And then after the unit's finished, post knowledge. I can say how many responses the students have, and I can say whether to show or hide the students' names. Probably from the point of view of the students, best that it's anonymous. You probably get better, more honest responses from the students. At that stage, again, it's just a little 3-step creation. I now have, as part of my notebook, a place where students can give me feedback. What will happen is they'll already have been with me through my response. So basically, when I start this, the activity will just change for them. At that point, they will be on their devices. They'll be asked those 2 questions. Apologies about my spelling there, just rushing a bit. And their answers will populate this this Shouted Out. The advantage of that is, if this were my unit of work, all of my feedback, both my assessment and my feedback from the students at any point, is embedded in my curriculum document. And that means I can actually take that and discuss it with other teachers and refine my curriculum document according in part to what students are telling me, which is very much in the world of Hattie. The other thing is lists are really important. It's a really quick way to do things. So I'm just going to work through very briefly a little response activity for you. And again, I do apologise if my internet's a bit slow, but you can see here that I've got response to planets. Now, at the moment, I don't have a response to activity built, but what I have done is I've got previous lists that I've saved that I can actually use in any of my lab activities. So when you create lists or lists of students or lists of questions, don't discard them, save them. And then when you come into something like response, you can actually reuse those. So I'm just going to load from here, and you can see there's my whole quiz done for me. If it's not exactly as I would like it, I can go and change a picture, change a question, tweak it. I might be using it with another class or another year level, but really, really quick, easy way to use response or any of the lab activities is to actually save your lists and reuse your lists. So, and there's a really nice little video on using and saving lists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget, Smart Response is Smart Exchange, sorry, is probably your best friend. It's a really easy way to get lots and lots of content without having to create it. On Smart Exchange are Shouted Outs, there are response activities, and the response activities will be updated for you if you're using 16.2 or 17.1. So the other thing I just wanted to allude to is with response and Shouted Out, it's quite a good idea to actually save some of those into your My Content in your own gallery. So if I click, and we've got a webinar next week on using the gallery, and I'll cover off on how to do this in that webinar, but if I click on response or my Shouted Outs, so you can see I've got a few Shouted Outs here. So I'm in a classroom, I'm really looking at the students, I'm thinking, are they getting this, you know, or am I missing a teachable moment? At any point, basically, my Shouted Out is already built and in my gallery. I can click on it and it becomes part of my notebook ready to use. Students will already been with me, so it's going to be really quick and easy. When I start it, they will be able to answer those questions. and I'll be able to trap that within my curriculum document. So think about putting response and shout-outs into your My Content folder so you can use them in a quick and easy way. So probably the last thing that I'd like to cover off on with you is please make sure Smart Response and Shout It Out are very well covered in Smart's YouTube channel, Ed to Ed. So there's a whole range of help videos there on almost anything to do with the Smart Learning Suite, but there's some very good ones on Response to and Shout It Out. We also have free online training courses at our Smart support site. You can go through those. They're self-paced. At the end, you can print yourself a certificate so you can credit it towards your teacher registration, but it's a really good, easy way to learn this and how to use things. And also, all our webinars are available at our Smart ANZ site. And please feel free, if you have any questions or queries about the webinar, you can email me directly, just Kevin Daly, no E, at smarttech.com, no AU at the end. So I'll just see if we've got any questions in the question pod. So there is one from one participant just about exporting data, just asking, is there any other format that you can export it as? We only export as a CSV, which will open up in Excel. But once you have the data in Excel, you can then do a save as and modify it and change it to suit your needs. So I always think back with Response to me actually handing out tests to my students, and they with open question, multiple choice, true, false answers, hand out 25 tests, pick them up to take them home to mark them, and then I might see those students again in 4 or 5 days. With Response, the correction's done instantaneously, the feedback's instantaneous, you don't have to take it home and mark it, and you do trap that content for your learning management system. So from your point of view as a teacher, a much, much better way to work. Okay, I think we'll stop it there, and hopefully we'll see you on the webinar next week, which is all about using Smart Gallery.